You know, when I first looked at this new footage, it honestly just felt like a massive, chaotic blur. I mean, we've got ninjas, mind-controlled grandmothers, a rogue tank literally crashing through the streets, and mutating heroes. It looks like complete madness, right? But the more I stared at these fragments, just obsessively piecing them together, a chilling realization hit me. These aren't just random, disconnected action sequences. I'm going to show you exactly how every single one of these chaotic moments actually forms one terrifying, unbroken chain reaction. So I want to plunge directly into the locked room mystery that kicks this entire nightmare off. What immediately confused me upon seeing this was the clash of two completely different worlds. We have Spider-Man fully suited up, locked in this brutal combat with the Hand, the mystic ninja assassins. But they aren't fighting on a shadowy rooftop in Hell's Kitchen. They are battling inside a sterile, high-tech cell block. I had to stop and ask myself, what on earth are ancient mystical assassins doing infiltrating a highly secured modern facility? Well, if you look closely at the distinct, harsh green lighting of these walls, it gives it away. This is a damage control prison, and we know that the head of damage control, William Metzger, is heavily involved here. When I connected the high-tech walls, Metzger's presence, and a coordinated strike by the Hand, it became incredibly clear. This isn't just a random skirmish. This is a highly calculated extraction mission. Somebody literally hired the best infiltrators on the planet to break into the most heavily guarded prison in the city. But an extraction mission for who? Metzger gives Spider-Man a very specific warning about an unseen danger. At first, I kind of thought he meant the stealthy ninja assassins hiding in the shadows. But then it clicked. Metzger wasn't talking about the Hand at all. He was talking about the target locked deep inside this very facility, Sadie Sink's Jean Grey. She is the ultimate prize here, and as you'll see, she's the catalyst for everything that's about to go horribly wrong. Because we are talking about apex-level telepathy here. We aren't just talking about someone who can, float a coffee mug with her mind. The sheer horror of Jean's power is that from a windowless cell miles underground, she can just reach out and completely hijack a human mind. With a single, effortless thought, she can plunge an entire city block into absolute unmitigated chaos, all from the dark, silent confines of her prison cell. I actually mapped out the rapid-fire destruction happening in the footage, and the timeline is just staggering. In mere seconds, Jean reaches out of her cell and completely possesses the mind of an innocent old lady walking down the street. Within minutes, she uses that host body to hijack a heavily armored tank, violently crashing it through the city to create a massive diversion. And while the authorities are totally distracted by that, Jean's consciousness is already hopping up into the minds of the prison guards on the catwalk, basically orchestrating her own violent escape from the inside out. And here is where the dominoes really start falling. Because this single mind control event ripples outward with absolutely lethal consequences. That tank crashing through the streets, it accidentally draws the attention of John Bernthal's Punisher, who happens to be right outside the Empire State Building. Frank Castle sees a rogue tank tearing through a crowd of civilians, and he does exactly what Frank Castle always does. He readies his weapons to permanently put down the threat. Which sets up this profound and honestly tragic irony. Spider-Man violently intervenes, throwing himself right into the line of fire to stop the Punisher from killing the driver of the tank. The clash of Spider-Man's strict no-kill morality against the Punisher's lethal force creates this massive, explosive conflict. But what makes this so heartbreaking to watch is that Spider-Man actually thinks he's fighting to save a standard villain from being murdered. He's completely unaware that he is risking his own life to protect an innocent, terrified, mind-controlled hostage. Meanwhile, over at Empire State University, we find Professor Bruce Banner. Now, because of the spell cast back in No Way Home, Banner remembers fighting alongside Spider-Man in Endgame, but his mind was completely wiped of Peter Parker's identity. So when Peter comes to him for help, Banner just sees a random, brilliant college kid. He's totally oblivious to the fact that this is his former brother-in-arms standing right in front of him. And Peter desperately needs Banner's help, because the biological fabric of this universe is literally starting to unravel. Remember Jean Grey's telepathic rampage? Well, at some point, her immense psychic power reaches out and attempts to suppress the mind of Bruce Banner, and this triggers a catastrophic biological failure. It's the classic unstoppable force meeting the immovable object, Jean's incredibly potent telepathic potential violently clashing against Bruce Banner's limitless, ever-scaling gamma anger. And her mind control totally fails. I want you to picture the sheer horror of what follows. Banner's mind violently breaks free of Jean's psychic hold. The intense mental trauma completely overrides his gamma inhibitor. The green Savage Hulk we know doesn't just return, he shatters. The biological stress forces a rapid, terrifying mutation, physically expanding and mutating him from the Green Hulk into a much larger, overwhelmingly brutal, and completely uncontrollable Grey Hulk. The psychological pressure literally forced his biology to evolve into a darker, way more dangerous state. I have to connect Bruce's terrifying evolution directly to Peter Parker's own deteriorating state, because it is happening to him too. In that initial prison fight against the Hand, I noticed something horrifying. Peter's eyes are glowing this menacing, unnatural red through his mask, and in one specific frame, he uses his raw, organic webbing to completely shatter a Hand assassin's forged steel sword. That takes an untethered, monstrous level of strength. It absolutely proves that, just like Banner, Peter is rapidly mutating and losing control of his own physical body. To really understand why this is happening, let me break down a little core comic lore here, because it's absolutely crucial. It comes down to the fundamental biological difference between a mutant and a mutate. Jean Grey is a mutant. She was born with the X gene, so her powers are a natural, stable part of her DNA. But both Bruce Banner and Peter Parker are mutates. Their genetics were violently altered after birth by extreme radiation, gamma rays, and a radioactive spider bite. Because their powers are the result of external trauma, their biology is inherently unstable. That is exactly why, under the extreme stress of this chain reaction, both of their biological structures are violently scaling out of control at the exact same time. Now, if you're worried this is going to turn into a full-blown horror movie, let me give you one simple number that might calm your nerves just a bit. PG-13. Because of the film's rating, we are likely spared the true R-rated Cronenberg-style body horror of Peter Parker undergoing a full grotesque man-spider transformation. We've seen that kind of visceral, fleshy horror in the noir universe, but here, the mutation will be a psychological nightmare. It's the terror of Peter feeling his own humanity slipping away, his strength becoming lethal, all while desperately trying to hold on to his moral compass. So let's pull our investigation all the way back to the inciting incident at the Damage Control prison. Amidst all the chaos at the Hand, the mind control, and the mutating heroes, I was genuinely shocked to see another familiar face return, Michael Mando's Scorpion. But he isn't just wearing street clothes this time. He returns in a highly advanced, comic-accurate mechanical suit, effortlessly hoisting a heavily armored guard by the throat with a massive, deadly stinger. Which leads me to the final pieces of my evidence board. We have to ask the ultimate question. Who has the immense wealth, the technological resources, and the underworld connections to hire Mac Gargan, upgrade him with a multi-million-dollar lethal stinger, and simultaneously deploy an ancient order of mystical ninjas? The scale of this operation is massive. Is it Tombstone pulling the strings from his underworld empire? Is it someone deeply obsessed with biological experiments, like the Jackal? Or is it an entirely unseen benefactor playing a much, much larger game? I weighed these clues very carefully, especially a deliberate shot I spotted during a party scene, a really clear look at the Jackal's logo. Now, while we likely aren't diving into the full clone saga here, his legacy of biological manipulation makes him the prime suspect. Given that both Hulk and Spider-Man are undergoing severe, unstable biological mutations, the Jackal's presence makes him a truly terrifying candidate for who is orchestrating all this chaos. And this brings me to a chilling, suspenseful realization that completely reframes everything we just talked about. Look at the board. Spider-Man is currently bleeding himself dry. He is desperately fighting a rampaging Grey Hulk, throwing himself between the Punisher's bullets and mind-controlled innocents, and simultaneously battling his own mutating biology that's threatening to strip away his humanity. But the real horror? While Peter is fighting on all these fronts, completely distracted by the chaos, the real mastermind who orchestrated this entire chain reaction has likely already walked away with the ultimate prize. The trap was set perfectly, and Spider-Man walked right into it.